which was that we have made internal combustion engines so incredibly efficient now. The marvel of technology that has existed, that has happened, over the past 100 years is truly spectacular, and we should be able to appreciate that. And we really ought to, just because there's a government saying, oh, you have to subsidize this technology and focus on that, does it always mean that it's the right solution? And no, I don't think it always does.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And welcome into the show. We are rocking it right here on the Automotive ADHD Show. A new survey has spoken, and it says that new car buyers hate touchscreens in their cars, and yet they keep buying them at record paces. And is it an automotive Stockholm syndrome that we've all collectively developed? And am I part of the problem as well? Yes, I am, and we're going to talk about that. We are also going to discuss the big, beautiful bill and what it means to you as someone who owns an automobile, whether you're a car guy like me or whether you just own a car. You need it to get to work. You maybe want to buy a car. You want to finance a car. You want to buy an EV. Not sure why you'd want to do that. But anyway, we're going to discuss all of that and more. And I'm going to play some stuff that I ran out of time for last time you heard this show, which is my interview clip with Brett Dickey. We're going to play his time attack, or rather a interview about his both time attack, but also Pikes Peak hill climb race car S2000. Yes, I know. You're probably sick and tired of me talking about S2000s, which is fine because I think I'm going to talk a little bit about Subarus today. So we're going to get to that. We're going to do all of that and more on this edition of the Automotive ADHD Show. Now, the radio show last week took a week off for Independence Day. We ran a best of. That way, the Automotive ADHD staff, which is me, myself, and I, and occasionally Jim Miller, that way we could all take a much-needed day to celebrate this great country's independence. And that involved barbecuing food, possibly discharging firearms in a safe manner, and watching fireworks. So, all good 4th of July things to do. So one of the things I also got to mention, by the way, is Drift, Colorado. If you're watching on video, of course, you can catch this show on the radio all across southern Colorado, but also online, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and more on video. You will see that I am wearing this fancy Drift, Colorado t-shirt, and that is because this season Automotive ADHD supports Drift, Colorado. Yes, you need to be involved in Drift, Colorado in one way or another, whether you're drifting or not. Look at the cars in my fleet here. Do I have a drift car right now? I don't, but I love what Drift, Colorado does. And you can even see on the back of this shirt, hey, whose logo is that? Jim Miller's. Oh, and Automotive ADHD. And Drift, Colorado's got a lot of great events coming up, by the way. That they're really exciting, especially if you're tuning in on the radio and maybe you're not as familiar with drift. You got to get out to one of these events just as a spectator, because it is so much fun to spectate drifting. It is really cool. I mean, yes, it's fun to spectate someone doing time attack, kind of, right? Really, when you're talking about grip racing, that is fun if you're the guy doing it. And it's okay if you're a spectator, okay? If you're doing time attack, if you're doing autocross, if you're doing whatever, any like sort of HPD day, high performance driving type of day. Again, that's more fun if you're the driver. Obviously, drifting is presumably more fun if you are the driver, but it is also fantastic if you're a spectator. And the next Drift Colorado event's going to be July 19th and 20th. That's the Round 3 DC Championship in Matsuri, which is at IMI, by the way, the IMI Sports Complex. And then you're going to have to go and check out their calendar. So that's going to be up north. That's going to be past Denver, but they are going to be back at the Pikes Peak International Raceway for my Colorado Springs listeners, September 6th and 7th for the Drift Clinic and Round 4 DC Championship. So And then they've got a schedule going out through October with some more dates, but those are some ones just to keep on your calendar. Check it out. Be a part of it. Support. When you support local events like this, you're not only supporting the events themselves, the organizers, the people doing it, but you're supporting the racetracks. And I am huge on supporting local racetracks. That is very important to me. That's very near and dear to my heart. You should patronize these local racetracks. You should either, if you're going to race there, that's great. But if not, spectate there. Maybe you got a buddy who's racing. While you're at the track, make sure you buy something from the concessions at the track, the food trucks that show up, the drinks. Do something, because these guys need to stay around. Racetracks are facing more and more increased scrutiny, both from regulators, but also from people in general, people who complain about the noise. And by the way, these racetracks, I've never seen a brand new racetrack, by the way. All of these racetracks, especially here in Colorado, have been around for decades, and yet housing complexes move in towards the racetrack. The racetrack didn't suddenly decide to build the racetrack in the middle of a housing development. No, the racetrack was there, and the housing development builds around the racetrack. And then people who knowingly purchased a house next to a racetrack start to complain about the sound. And then they get on city council, and then city council does stuff. And then ultimately they find a way to shut that racetrack down through legitimate means, or sometimes not. And we need to support these racetracks. They need to know that the community is behind them as well. And also, if the communities, the people who did knowingly purchase a house next to a racetrack, if they see yes, it might be noisy, but maybe they see a positive community impact from it, not a negative one. Maybe they see the way it brings business into town. Maybe they see the way that families come in and enjoy family-friendly events, all sharing a love for cars and racing and the benefits to this. Then we are slowly but surely, it's not a win-all solution, but it is an important part to the culture war that is coming for our racetrack. So anyway, that's a soapbox if I've ever heard one there, but you should get out there, support Drift Colorado, support any of the events at your local racetrack. So now we got a few minutes here, and I want to talk about Big Beautiful Bill, how it relates to cars. I want to talk about a few other things. Of course, I mentioned that Brett Dickey interview that I've got coming up. And I know, yes, I didn't play it last time. I will play it this time. I know. I am fantastic at managing my time on the show. I say with sarcasm. But one of the things I want to mention really quick is an update on my purchasing of a Subaru, which it was interesting. When I bought my 2024 WRX, I actually looked at the analytics of my podcast, how many people are listening, and I can chart it online, at least for the online listeners. And it was interesting. The views and the listens were doing this. They were trending upwards. And then I announced that I bought a Subaru, and they went down immediately. And in fact, they went negative. How does it even go negative? How do you negative watch something? Anyway, that's what happened when I bought a Subaru. I think people were a little heartbroken that I would cave to the vape guys and the head gasket guys and the ringland failure guys, but I did. And it's because I actually already owned a Subaru before that, and I just forgot. I do own a 2007 Hawkeye WRX, which I bought mostly blown up, and then I helped it along the rest of the way. I don't know if I really contributed to it exploding, or if the previous owner did, or just the fact that it was a Subaru and it just self-deleted. I don't know. But these things do happen with Subaru. So I'm sitting here, and after a while, I forget that I own this 2007, and instead of fixing it, I go, man, I really I want something all-wheel drive. I want something with a flat four and a turbo, and my options are limited. I'm going to go out and buy a 2024 WRX. And then I bought it and then remembered, oh yeah, I own a 2007, and I probably should have just fixed that one instead. But the thing with my 2024 that's been fascinating, I've talked about various things on it that I don't like the touchscreen. We will dive into that discussion again later on the show as well. But one of the things that I discovered was mods. Yes, mods. You might be going, oh my God, he's discovered mods for Subaru. This is going to be bad. But oh man. And maybe it will be bad. Maybe it will. And we will, I think, we'll discuss a little more about that. But I was flabbergasted. Is that the right word to say? And how many mods are actually available for this car. And you got to realize, I'm coming from working on old AE86s where I either have to buy a whole nother parts car that's wrecked to get parts I need, import parts from Japan, or try to bribe Jim Miller for the parts that he has and that he won't sell me. It's hard. And then my S2000, every time I go to the dealer for something, oh, sorry, that's discontinued. And the aftermarket has some stuff, but not in the way Subarus do. So we're going to discuss that and more, and the big, beautiful bill. That's all coming up right here. After the break, you are listening to the Automotive ADHD show all across Southern Colorado and online. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here after the break.
Is the American Motors Spirit worth $5 more than Chevette?
Let's compare. Chevette would have to be a lot wider to give you the same front seat comfort as Spirit. Spirit's 21-gallon gas tank is bigger, too. Think about that this weekend. And Spirit has Z-Bart factory rust protection, plus the only 5-year no rust-through warranty. American Motors Spirit. It lists for $5 more than Chevette, but it's worth it.
American Motors, built for today, built to last for tomorrow.
This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Yes, it is. Hey, send your car sounds into my show, facebook.com/Automotive ADHD for a chance to be featured right here on the show. Now, I was talking before the break about Subarus. Yes, it's specifically the one that I purchased. And what I found interesting about this, okay, because I bought a 2024 WRX because I owned a 2007 WRX that I forgot that I owned. So then I was like, I want a Subaru, and then I bought a 2024, and then again I realized, oh wait, I already own a Subaru. I probably should have fixed that one instead. But anyway, these things happen, right? This happens to everybody, obviously, right? Anyway, so what I found fascinating about the aftermarket realm of this car was interesting because my background is coming from the A86, which I have to do all sorts of crazy stuff to get parts for. The S2000, way harder to get parts for. An okay aftermarket's available for it, but it is tough. And what is fascinating to me about the Subaru, now that I'm exploring the realm of modding it, and I will say modding it with a little asterisk next to it, because I'm going to be responsible. Yes, I'm looking at the camera with a straight face and saying that I will be responsible. You can hold me accountable to it here on the show. But the reason for it is because I bought this car with a warranty. It's a certified pre-owned with 700 miles on it. I get the standard CPO warranty, which is a drivetrain warranty on the drivetrain. And I also have an extended, I went out of my way and purchased an extended bumper-to-bumper 7-year warranty, which I did that because, well, it's a Subaru, and it probably will need that. Hopefully it doesn't. But it is a Subaru, and we know there's a reputation with these cars, especially in the car scene. So no, I'm not going to touch anything power-wise. Not even going to do it. No stage 1, 2, 3, 69, nice tunes. No, it's not happening. Not happening. I'm not going to do it. Mark my words, I'm not going to do it. But, and the reason is because, again, that car, it's a daily driver. It needs to be reliable while this other stuff I have is broken. But I was curious about, all right, well, hey, maybe I want some rain guards for the car that go on the passenger, or the side windows, I should say. And I started looking looking up, who makes a good rain guard? OEM. Subaru makes a rain guard. Okay, cool. And then I was looking at other stuff. Oh, Subaru, I wanted to put a little duckbill spoiler on the trunk so it looks like the premium trim version of the car. Mine's a base model. They have the same drivetrain, by the way. So there's really no up-badging happening here because the drivetrain from the base model all the way to the top trim is identical with the exception of the brakes and maybe some shock valving and stuff on the higher trim version. But with that, I said, I want the little duckbill spoiler. Who makes that? Oh, Subaru does one of those. OEM. Okay. What about the Alcantara inserts that the premium one gets that go in the interior? Oh, you could just buy those too. And not even from the dealer, from third-party resellers of genuine OEM parts with reasonable prices. That's the kicker, right? I go to the Honda dealer, ask for a part for my S2000, and either they tell me to go away because the part's been discontinued, or they want a legitimate arm and a leg and then some for that part. And seeing as how I like all my arms and legs, and I don't maybe need that part that badly, I typically go elsewhere and look for that part. And that's what surprised me, right? And you might be saying, and in fact, probably most of the world is saying, oh my God, Matt, we all know this. We all have these cars. I know this is new to me, though, because I've only owned cars that have a terrible terrible aftermarket support, frankly. And it's surprising to me. It's almost refreshing in a weird way that these cars have support for this. And what that brings me to, and you can buy, and there's obviously a huge catalog of actual aftermarket stuff, not just post-sale OEM stuff. That doesn't really count as aftermarket, but legitimate aftermarket stuff. And some very cringy, some very, very stereotypical Subaru owner. You've got an owner, you've got a person in mind you're already thinking of when I say that. Maybe you are that person. And you're saying, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, there's a lot of that stuff, but it really just surprised me how configurable, how kind of like Legos this platform is, whether that's old WRXs all the way up to the newest generation of that WRX. So one of the things I'm really curious, though, is to have you sound off and let me know what you think, especially if you've bought a newer car. What has the modability been like? What has perhaps the aftermarket or even the OEM support for add-ons, which, again, has very much surprised me with Subaru. And, you know, I'm not here to come in and say I know it all. I'm kind of here to be the messenger and tell you what I'm discovering. But let me know your thoughts on the Facebook page, on YouTube. Comment on the video of this after the fact. And let me know how the aftermarket support has been for whatever platform it is you have. Has it been good? Is it good like what I'm finding? Has it been terrible? Is it worse than trying to find parts for some of my clunkers? So let me know. Now, one of the things I promised I would get to here is Big Beautiful Bill and what it relates to in terms of automotive purchases. And there's actually quite a lot of stuff going on here. And a lot of them have some little asterisks next to them. And they need some explanation and some additional analysis. And hat tip to Motor Trend, specifically Scott Evans from Motor Trend, for putting together a great list of everything that's automotive in that bill. And first of all is no tax on car loan interest. And there's a really big caveat here, because no tax on car loan interest, that sounds like a very good thing. And in many ways, I think that will be a positive. This is a good thing. But if you're a new car buyer and you're expecting no tax on that new car interest, there's a lot of caveats you have to be aware of. First of which is that, and the big one is that the car needs to be made in the United States. It legitimately has to be assembled, at least, in the United States. And that's going to confuse a lot of people because they're going to buy a Ford or a Chevy and go, yeah, I bought an American car. I hate to break it to you, your Ford or Chevy was probably made in Mexico, so it doesn't qualify. Then you get someone who's not expecting it, who's buying a Toyota. Oh, I'm probably not going to get that. I bought a Japanese car. No, actually, your Toyota was made in the United States. Surprise. Yeah. Now, some Toyotas are also made in Mexico, and some are made all over the place. But and some are genuinely made in Japan still. But having said that, the car has to be made in the U.S. It also can't weigh more than 14,000 pounds. So that rules out things like your Ford F-350s, even if it's not. I'm assuming they're doing that to rule out commercial vehicles, but a lot of people buy F-350s for non-commercial purposes. That rules that out. Now, here's the thing. They do say commercial vehicles, here another caveat, commercial vehicles qualify. So if you buy a box truck, it's a commercial vehicle, right? No, but only if you use it for personal use. You can't use it for a business. So that's relevant, though, if you are buying perhaps a vehicle for your small business and you're wanting to claim some other small business tax deductions, well, know that if you do that, you're not going to qualify for the no tax on the interest on this. I mean, there's so much stuff here. I think you need a CPA just to figure out this one thing here. And don't get me started on the fact that the tax deduction's capped at $10,000. Also, if you make more than $100,000 a year as an individual or $200,000 joint, the amount of interest that you're able to deduct goes down by $200 for every additional $1,000 over that income threshold you make. So again, if you're scratching your head going, what? You know what? This is one of those things that there's so many hoops on it. It does kind of make me wonder, and granted, these hoops probably got put in there. The original intention of this probably didn't have these hoops, but I mean, these bills have to go through so many different stages, and the House, and then the Senate, and then they got to get this added, and then they change this, and then they do that, and then finally it makes it to the president's desk to sign, and it's probably a far cry from the original intention that went in with this, which was to reduce the tax on the loans, on interest on the loans and stuff. So The other thing here that's a big thing, EV tax credits. Those are set to end September 30th. And that's the up to $7,500 federal tax credit for new and used EVs. And that does expire again, September 30th of this year. Previously, those tax credits were slated to expire in 2032. Now it's this year. Also, another tax credit on an adjacent note is for installing an EV charger or renewable fuel dispenser at your home. That, they say, is going to expire even sooner on July 30th of this year. Also, I want to know more about these renewable fuel dispensers. It says EV charger of renewable fuel dispensers. I'm not familiar with that. Is that like if you are making your own ethanol at home and you have a still and you're distilling ethanol? You're not making moonshine to drink it, but you might be making moonshine to put in your car. Does that count as renewable fuel? I think it does. But so I guess if you've got a still at home that you're using to make ethanol fuel for your car, that tax credit, if you had it, will expire at the end of the year. Also, there is going to be no penalties. This is a big one for cafe violations. And what is cafe violations? So cafe, you've probably heard this term. It's not cafe like a place you'd go to drink some coffee, which I've got right here. Hang on. But it is corporate average fuel economy program. And that essentially, what it does is it is the thing that requires manufacturers to have a certain average fuel economy across their line. So if you're going to have a Corvette with a V8 and it's supercharged and it guzzles a ton of fuel, think the new ZR1 burns a ton of fuel. Then you have to offset that lower fuel mileage vehicle in your fleet with another vehicle that is particularly fuel efficient, so a hybrid or something. So it's to try to offset this. Well, there's fines if you don't do this. And what this does is it doesn't get rid of CAFE. In fact, the bill did not have the authority necessarily to completely get rid of the CAFE standards. What they did instead, and this is kind of sneaky, is because the bill, by the way, was relating to fiscal things. All of this had to relate to money in one way or another. So they said, oh, well, let's make the penalties $0. So we can't get rid of it, but we can make the penalty $0. So you can just stack up penalties and it doesn't cost you anything. So that is presumably what they're going to do. That means automakers are going to be free to ignore those fuel economy regulations and that the EPA can't enforce them. And I think, people say, oh my God, the EPA can't enforce it. This is terrible. Oh, we're going to have gas guzzlers here and there. I don't think that's the case at all. In fact, I think this is going to be a step forward. And for the reason for that is to have less government involvement and reduce this. This is a good step in both reducing the size of government, but also letting consumers dictate what they actually want. And people are already saying, oh my God, these fuel efficient cars are just going to go away. And that's not going to be the case because people have been wanting fuel efficient cars for a long time. I mean, a really long time at this point. And you want your Toyota Prius, you want your hybrid, heck, you even want your EV for whatever reason that is. And you want that EV. People are going to buy it. There's going to be a demand for that. I don't think this is going to hurt fuel efficient cars in general. And not to mention the fact that even with this, most manufacturers are making their cars now for the global market, right? They're making it for Europe and Asia and stuff. So I don't think this is necessarily going to change a lot. It's just going to remove some government bloat on our end. So, hey, you're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show. We're going to keep talking about this and more after the break.
This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
So before the break, I was talking a little bit about the big, beautiful bill and how it relates to you and me as car owners, perhaps even as automotive enthusiasts. And there are a few other things. Before the break, I was talking about how they are going to be doing away with the CAFE violations, specifically the fines. They can't get rid of the CAFE regulations themselves, but they can make the fines $0. So that is going to happen. And I was making the point as we were going to break of how this really won't change things all that much for people, especially for the naysayers saying that, oh my God, we're going to go back to pre-1970s, cars are going to get 5 miles to the gallon. It's not going to happen. That is not true. It's not going to happen at all. And I wanted to elaborate more on that reasoning. I think really the key part is the fact that, for one, fuel prices aren't going back to pre-OPEC oil prices, OPEC oil crisis prices, I should say. They're not going back to that. When we saw cars that got 5 miles to the gallon, gas was a few cents a gallon practically, right? We're not going back to that in terms of fuel prices, so we're not going to see manufacturers suddenly throw fuel economy to the wind and just make cars that are horribly, grossly inefficient. That's not going to happen. And that's because the fuel prices are generally going to stay where they're at. There is speculation that some of the other things in the big, beautiful bill could result in those prices slowly trickling down, but there's such a global economy for fuel and oil right now that it will probably be a minor reduction in price at the pump if we do see one. But, to the fuel economy point, gas prices are going to stay relatively the same. No one's going to suddenly want a truck that gets 2 miles to the gallon or a car that gets 7 miles to the gallon. That's not going to happen. And then the other point that I wanted to make was the national market, the international market, I should say, for automobiles, because Ford is selling in Europe. Ford is selling in all these different places. Chevy's selling here. Japan is selling in Japan and then in the US. Like, there's all these other countries, and manufacturers aren't making dedicated versions of every single car for every single market. And if they have to, they're usually changing minor things like certain turn signal requirements and side markers and things like that. They're not changing entire drivetrains. It doesn't make sense fiscally to do that. So again, to the naysayer saying that we are going to see, and I've seen this already on social media and online, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. Cars are going to get, no, that nothing's going to change. Literally nothing is going to change for the worse with this. If anything, again, we're just removing a lot of bloat in the bureaucratic system above it. And for that, I think it will be a good thing in the long run. But, and to that fact too, that consumers do want fuel efficient cars. We're pretty used to them now. We're pretty used to getting 20 plus miles to the gallon, 30 plus. If you own a Prius or a hybrid, you're getting 35, 40, 45, 50. I mean, you're getting some crazy gas mileage. A buddy of mine actually just bought a hybrid Toyota Corolla, 2025 hybrid Corolla. And I think it's amazing gas mileage. It's like a Prius, but in Corolla form. And I think it's fantastic. So, more power to you. Buy what works for your use case scenario, even if that's an EV. I'm giving the camera some side eye, but anyway, even if that's an EV, buy what works for your use case scenario. So, anyway, that kind of encompasses some of the important key points here, automotive related, at least within the bill. And will we see some more stuff come out afterwards? Will we see more as people dig into the bill more? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. Overall, there's not going to be a tremendous automotive impact from the bill. The big key thing, I think, too, that a lot of people are talking about, again, either is that fuel economy requirement or the EV tax credit. With the federal EV tax credit going away, Colorado will probably, because Colorado is the state that it will probably up the state tax credit. I imagine California would do the same. So, you'll see some of these states that have been very pro EV come in and probably fill that void for some people who want to buy EVs with the tax credits. Though, if you've listened to the show for any duration of time, you know my opinion on those tax credits and on those subsidies. I've heard people arguing that, well, if we get rid of the tax credits, no one's going to want to buy the EVs. I just made my argument right there. If no one wants to buy the product without it being subsidized, doesn't that mean that we have a fundamental issue with that product, that it's not complete, it's not ready? If you have to, in order for people to like it, you have to subsidize it. We should make the product shine on its own. That's what should happen. I want to see awesome EVs. I do. I want to see cool stuff. I'm optimistic about the Slate EV pickup truck, which is a cheap, no frills, base model pickup truck. It's an EV, but it is truly a small truck. It's the size, it's only like an inch or two bigger than the original Ford, Ranger, which was a small truck at one time. It was, believe it or not. I'm very optimistic about that. And I think, if manufacturers can make EVs in a way that's desirable, that appeals to the American public in a variety of ways, because the American public is a big thing in general. I mean, one of the things I learned is fascinating when I went to Japan. Japan has a very centralized type of society. They have a very central cultural identity, if that makes sense. They are all Japanese and they all share in this cultural identity, and they all sort of live the same sort of lifestyle. They all cram themselves into these big cities. And of course, you get the people living out in the countryside. When I went through the countryside and in the mountains of Yamanashi Prefecture, that was some of my favorite territory in Japan, and the people were so friendly. And I did go to Sportsland Yamanashi, the racetrack there, and I'm going to post some stuff. I did some videos out there, actually, that aren't posted yet, and I'm going to put those up on social media here in the coming weeks. So it should be pretty fun. You should look forward to that. But, generally speaking, there's a cultural identity that is shared. In the United States, we don't necessarily have that sort of cultural identity because, for one, we're such a big country. Japan, for example, is the size, landmass-wise, of California, right? And they've also been around for many, many, many hundreds of years longer than the United States. The United States, we're a big country. We're in different states. Those states geographically have lots of different terrain features. You've got people by the ocean. You got people in the mountains. You got people in the desert. You've got people in the plains. You've got people in whatever Kansas is, which is that plains or is that just void space? I'm not sure. But my point being is the United States, it's big. It's really big. And when I've talked to people from Europe too, for example, they don't get this. Like, what do you mean, you can drive 5 or 6 hours and not have any and run into anybody? Well, yeah, you truly can. You can drive 5 or 6 hours and be in the same state. In much of Europe, you drive 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. You've traveled through like 3 countries. And really, you have to treat European countries and things like in the EU, for example, with treat them almost as if they are states in a way, even though they're not. And they are independently governed, but as independent as you can be in the EU. But the fact is, and again, tying this back into cars, is there's so much diversity in use cases here in the US. You have the guy commuting on the train in New York City all the way to someone in, suburban Illinois. And then you got someone in, rural Colorado. And then you got the farmer or the rancher in Texas or whatever, right? You have a wide spread of people. And as a result, you have a wide spread of use cases. And that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see the EV market cater to. I want to see cool EVs that actually appeal not to just the tech bros in California or the executives in New York and whatever. I want to see EVs that appeal to some of these more niche cases. And that Slate EV truck definitely does do that. So looping that back into my discussion again with the federal subsidy for EVs going away. And the criticism again is that, well, if we do this, EV sales will go down. People won't want to buy EVs. Okay, we'll make the EVs better. And if people don't want to buy the EVs, why is that necessarily a problem? There's this notion that, people don't want to buy the EVs. That's a huge problem. Why? I just mentioned my buddy's 2025 hybrid Corolla that gets a ton of amazing fuel economy. And when you think about the manufacturing methods to making that hybrid, for example, they're fantastic. I mean, they have created Toyota has created a manufacturing process with peak efficiency, both in terms of the material development, the manufacturing of those materials, the logistics to bringing parts in, the batteries, the motors, the engine, like all of this stuff that goes into this. I mean, it is an engineering marvel. And I don't understand why about 50% of the population just kind of puts hybrids and gas cars to the side of, those are old dinosaurs. We got to get away from that. When in reality, we are at the pinnacle of engineering and development with internal combustion, which actually really should be Oh, shame on me. Shame on me. I rarely do that. You're listening to the Automotive ADHD show. I'm your host, Matt West, of course, and you can catch this show on the radio all across southern Colorado from my flagship station, AM 1460 The Answer in Colorado Springs, but as well as 100.7 The Word, 91.7 KLZR, and of course online. And what just happened? Well, before the news break, we had a technical glitch. My bumper music didn't play, and I would like to think that I am a professional. I am a seasoned broadcast professional who keeps a perfect eye on his timing between each of the segments. No, in reality, I sort of just talk until I hear the bumper music, and I did not hear the bumper music because it did not play. And it also didn't play coming into the show here because we're having some glitches with the computer system right now. So we're doing this old school, doing it. It's just you and me. There's no crazy automation happening at the same time. There's no fancy production. You and me hanging out here talking cars on the radio. Shame on the producer, by the way, which in this case is also me. I am producing my own show today. Oh man! But I was making this awesome point when I got cut off by the news break, which was that we have made internal combustion engines so incredibly efficient now. The marvel of technology that has existed, that has happened, over the past 100 years is truly spectacular, and we should be able to appreciate that. And we really ought to, just because there's a government saying, oh, you have to subsidize this technology and focus on that. Does it always mean that it's the right solution? And no, I don't think it always does. So anyway, there are my thoughts on that right there. And of course, we're dealing with some live radio today. I do love it, by the way. And now, one of the other things that I wanted to touch on, we got to hear from Brett Dickey. That's for sure. We got to hear from Brett Dickey. If it one way or another, technical glitch or not, even if it kills me, we are going to hear from Brett Dickey and his S2000. We're not actually hearing from the S2000. But anyway, so one of the things I want to touch on here really quickly is a hilarious news story that came out, and it's about touchscreens, man. Touchscreens. A new study is saying that touchscreens, according to consumers, they love how the big touchscreens look, but all of them are a pain to operate. Yes, they hate all of them. And why do they hate all of them? Well, there's a number of reasons, and complexity is certainly one of those reasons. Obviously, complexity is cost to repair, things like that. You know what I don't like too is the touchscreen in my Subaru gets fingerprints on it. Like, come on, man, what the heck? I don't know. It's a small nag. Also, the touchscreen likes to lag out a little bit. But anyway, this is one of those things. Is it an automotive Stockholm syndrome that we have as consumers? Consumers are saying, hey, we no longer want touchscreens, right? Well, then we keep buying the cars with the touchscreens. And, I do think that I am part of the problem. And by the way, if you are watching on video and if you're seeing that I'm not really looking at the camera here, it's because I'm trying to fix the computer system while we're talking, because I want my Brett Dickey clip. We're going to get that Brett Dickey clip. So, but anyway, the touchscreens, I think, are, I don't know. We got to go more into this. The technical issues have thrown me off the rails here. I want to play Brett Dickey for you. I'm going to do a bonus episode here after the show, after we're off the air. And I'm going to do this bonus episode, I think. And I'm going to really dive into what I think about the touchscreens, what consumers are thinking about touchscreens. And perhaps you agree with me. And in fact, I know you agree with me in this case. I haven't met anybody who goes, gosh, I just love that touchscreen in my car. That thing's awesome. It's so great. Works all the time. It's really easy to use while I'm driving. Yeah, no one has ever said that. No one, in fact. And if you have said that, you're just lying to yourself. So anyway, context on this Brett Dickey clip. I was at the Pikes Peak Hill Climb a few weeks ago. I was at the actual race, but this clip was from FanFest, and I talked to him about his S2000. And yes, I probably walked up to him because it was an S2000, but it's a really cool interview. Brett Dickey has been a part of the Hill Climb several times now, and I've even ran into one of his former race engineers who you know on this show, Amir Bentatu, who has been a serial guest returning on the show multiple times. So anyway, let's roll that clip from Brett Dickey right here. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us on Automotive ADHD. Matt West here with Brett Dickey with this fantastic S2000. Brett, thanks for joining me here.
No problems at all.
And what I've been doing is I've been inviting people to join me in their own booth. So that's typically
Makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly. But tell me a little bit about yourself going into the hill climb here. You've been here several times before, but tell me about your background a little bit.
Yeah, so my background's a little bit different than most drivers here. So I'm obviously from the other side of the world. It makes it a little bit harder. So I don't get as much time to adjust to the altitude as some drivers, but being my 4th year, I think I've got it semi under control. But yeah, looking forward to Sunday. We had a relatively good practice. But yeah, qualifying was a little bit of a letdown this year. So,
and I've heard that from a lot of drivers though too. There were just some challenges with the way the whole thing was running that day, and
yeah, we tried some new parts on the car, and sadly, I didn't get into America soon enough to do enough testing. So we turned up with a relatively untested car. A lot of changes to the car since I was here in April in Texas doing super lap battle. So
okay,
yeah, the team decided to give me a new car again, and sadly some of those new parts didn't work out.
Nice. Well, it happens though. It happens. And you've been behind the wheel of an S2000 many times before. Can you tell me a little bit about this one right here?
Yeah, so this car's a bit of a unique car. This is actually the shop's project car, so Project Import's shop car, and the car's been around for a long time with a few different drivers and a few different owners, but it's always stayed with the shop. And then recently, in 2021, we come up with a plan to run at Pikes Peak, and we had to rebuild the car in 3 months before the event. And this is essentially what we come up with. So F22C, sequential gearbox, M-Tron ECU, Garrett G30 900 turbo, nitrous. It's got it all going on now. So
wow.
Yeah, when we want to wind it up, it makes 800 horsepower.
Oh man. Well, I was gonna say the wide body didn't give it away or anything that you need some extra traction for.
It's totally standard.
Yeah, totally stock. No, yeah. I'm thinking back to my car's stock. This is not stock. Oh man, this is great. Now, as a driver though, how have things been for you this year? I mean, every year guys are saying, and I've talked to a lot of drivers, well, this year there's some new frost heaves there, the road surface isn't where it was. What's your impression on that?
The biggest thing for us, obviously the bottom section's relatively the same, couple of extra bumps over the 12-month period.
Yeah.
Middle section was a bit different for us this year because it snowed the night before, so we didn't really get to maximize the middle section. And then, yeah, the top section, it's like doing overlanding and being off-road. It's so bumpy. There's bumps. Last year, we were only on one side of the road. This time, they're both sides, so you can't actually go around the bump. So, yeah, you really got to pick your line. The car comes off the ground a fair few times in the top section, but yeah, I think we've got it under control with the chassis setup, but who knows? It's sunny now. The mountain could change in the next 2 days.
Well, and for folks joining us from home, it is the end of June. It's 98 degrees today, and yes, there is snow on the mountain at times, but you don't really know when the snow is going to be there. So
yeah, it's crazy. I think if you tell people that the mountain changes with the weather, they laugh. But yeah, the mountain can move up to 2 to 3 inches in the road surface, depending on the temperature. So
right.
It could change from the morning session to the afternoon. So you're chasing a setup, and you'll never get it perfect. So we'll try.
Well, and that's where you're staying sharp as a driver. Your team's staying sharp, working on the car, making adjustments. And I mean, it all comes together as a team effort, really, right?
Yeah, without our crew, I definitely wouldn't be here. They work around the clock. I get the good job of going to sleep at 6 o'clock every day to be ready for practice, but it's not unheard of for these guys to work through the night.
Wow. Well, hey, best of luck to both you and also the team. You got the race coming up here. You going to do anything once the race is done? You going to kick back and relax?
I might just make sure our cooler's empty before we put it back in the truck.
See, that's a good plan.
Yeah, we'll make sure.
Brett Dickey, thank you so much.
Cheers.
Appreciate it. All right. Again, Brett Dickey talking Pikes Peak Hill Climb. Hey, I want to thank you for listening to the Automotive ADHD show. We even had a few hiccups this morning, which, hey, made things fun. Keeps me on my toes. So hopefully you enjoyed the show. Remember to catch the podcast. I'm going to do a bonus podcast touching on touchscreens. That's going to be online. Look up this show wherever you get fine shows and mine. I'll talk to you right here, same time, same place, next week.